So what did I make of BBC's documentary Stable? So for anyone who hasn't seen it, what was it? Basically, it was the story of Shane McGuigan's gym. You know, he's going for this old school boxing gym style, you know, a lot of fighters, female, men, different weight categories, whereas a lot of modern day boxing trainers will only have a few people they'll train, or someone like Anthony Yard, Tunde, I think they pretty much work one on one. So yeah, very different, very unique style of training these days. And we saw the Azim brothers. We saw their build up. We saw Daniel Dubois, Carolyn Dubois, Ellie Scotney, Okoli, Chris Billam-Smith, and I think Chris Billam-Smith's story was the real warm story to the whole thing. You know, he wasn't supposed to be a world champion. You know, I think when they got in the gym, the thoughts were like, oh, European belt. So the fact that he got a world title, and the fact that it was that he's had such a strong relationship with Shane, I think that's just such a beautiful moment for me. I don't think he gets enough credit for like taking care of Okoli. Like, Okoli is massive for the weight, like big and strong. Should probably be a heavyweight. And Billam-Smith dropped him, and the first person to really deal with him. I don't think he gets enough credit for that, because everyone just says he's big and strong, and he is. Boxing isn't it? He's not boxing IQ wise. Isn't one of the top guys. Reminds me a bit of Cole Froch versus George Groves. George Groves the better boxing IQ, but Cole Froch just hits harder, better chin. And I think that's just a beautiful story, really. Like seeing him work hard and eventually taking down the guy who was always above him in the gym. So yeah, I think it was a really beautiful story. And I think you realise how much sacrifice the trainers take on as well. You could say Shane's body was it was in pieces because he'd been taking, those heavy shots from Daniel Dubois. And because he likes to be in the pads himself to, really get a feel for the fighter, you kind of understand the sacrifices they have to make as well. And I think it was just sweet seeing how much the boxers care. Like, even though they all put on, the hard act, the trash talk, the performance, after the fight, there's just so much respect between them. You saw it after Danny Dubois went over the American guy, like, the American guy was so happy for Danny Dubois to win. He was like in awe of him. There was no bitterness. It was literally just love. And you can see how much Shane cares for his fighters. And yeah, it's interesting. He knows that you can't play boxing. He talks about he probably wouldn't want his son to be a boxer. And Barry McGuigan made such a good point about why boxing, people who want to shut down boxing, they don't understand. They don't understand that, like, if you're working class, if you have absolutely nothing, boxing is the only way out. I think that's what some people don't understand. Like, although it's violent, this is the only way for some people. Some people just have that warrior DNA in them, that gladiator, that they have to fight. They can't just live a normal 9 to 5. They have to strive for greatness. They have to fight. They have to be the best. So I think for me, it just gave me an even greater respect for fighters, the sacrifices they make, the trainers, the hard work, the build up, like going out and knowing you could be knocked out, in front of the world, in front of your family, but still taking that risk. Like, it just incorporates everything that, a fighter should be. And for me, it was a really touching documentary. I mean, I knew most of the stories anyway, just from being a boxing fan, but I think just seeing the respect really touched me. You saw when Chris Billam-Smith, he hugged McCarthy after he knocked him out. Coley and Billam-Smith embraced after he beat Okoli. Yeah, you see that, there's always respect and love there, even in, the hurt business, when you want to knock people out. So, you saw the high, you saw the lows. I mean, there was a bit... I think another thing I learned is, like, you can see that real men do cry. Like, you saw Billam-Smith crying when his baby was born. Just a beautiful moment. You saw another one of the fighters, crying after his match. Like, and they're kind, they're not bullies, the trainers. They're not like, oh, man up, do this. They're like, they embraced him when he cried. It wasn't you got to be tougher. Obviously, they're tough guys, but they still cry. They're still vulnerable, and they're still kind to one another. And I think it was a really interesting insight into the world of boxing. So definitely worth a watch if you haven't seen it already. If you don't know about the story of, Chris Billam-Smith, Ellie Scotney, Carolyn Dubois, Daniel Dubois. It did also recognise the kind of cold side of boxing. I think Shane said, some boxers he'd work with, they just leave without saying a goodbye. He split up with Okoli. And, well, obviously Daniel Dubois now has a new trainer. They said online there was like a family feud, but that seemed a bit dramatic. And it can't have been that bad if Caroline is still training with Shane. So maybe Dubois just wanted a different direction. And obviously Shane was probably struggling with taking all those shots from Dubois. Like, he's a big guy. I didn't realise like how huge he is, but he looks like Anthony Joshua. Like, he's got those kind of, well, I don't want to sound too sus, but he's got those kind of big muscles, chiseled body, looks really strong. So yeah, I think what I learned gave me a huge respect for fighters. Learned that there's still love in the pain game. Still love and respect. And yeah, the beautiful story of Chris Billam-Smith, you know, seeing how, you know, the toughest men on the planet still cry. Really beautiful documentary, and well done to everyone who created it. Really tragic story as well for the McGuigans. Like Shane's sibling, the actor, died from cancer, age 33, which is tragic. Barry's, I think he said his brother committed suicide. Just really heartbreaking, man. But just the togetherness is really nice. You know, these fighters, although you have to be so hard, you know, they still smile. You know, they laugh, they love each other. So I think for me, it was just a really beautiful documentary, very entertaining, so exciting. You felt like you were there in the crowd. You felt like you were a part of it. But yeah, really enjoyable documentary. Let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. Did you enjoy it? Like and subscribe if you liked the video. Thanks for watching. Goodbye.